Have you ever thought about why some people are more resilient than others? Are we born with it? Do we develop it throughout our lifetime? In today's episode, we'll dive into the science of resilience and what you can do to thrive in the face of adversity and build inner strength.
Welcome to Tell Me More and Then Some.
I'm Alina.
And I'm Angeline.
Join us as we dive deep into the topics that fuel our conscious evolution and keep us learning as students of life.
We invite you to come along and share the ride. We hope you're empowered to learn and grow into the best and most authentic version of yourself. We're so happy you're here. Let's go.
Did you know research has shown that each of us will be struck with one or more traumas sometime in our lives? Perhaps you've been a victim of mental or physical abuse, involved in a serious car accident, lost a loved one, lost a job, suffered a debilitating disease. The list goes on and on. Resilience is a remarkable ability of some individuals to bounce back from adversity while others struggle to do so. What causes the variation in resilience? Are we born with it, or can we learn to be more resilient? In today's episode, we'll explore the scientific research behind resilience, share insights from reputable sources, pose reflective questions to assess your own resilience, and provide practical tips to strengthen your resilience.
There are a few factors relating to the science of resilience, one being nature versus nurture. Dr. Stephen Southwick, a Yale professor, suggests resilience is about 50% genetic and 50% learned. This means we have a genetic predisposition to resilience, but it can also be nurtured and developed, which I thought was great news. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardships, it's about adapting to them. Researchers at the Harvard Center of the Developing Child state that facing manageable stressors can help build resilience. And lucky for us, our brains can change and adapt. Dr. Linda Graham, she's a therapist and an author, explains resilience is closely linked to neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize its structure, functions, and connections.
I want you to think about what threatens development in one's life when we think about resilience, right? So if a person does well with no adversity, you may describe them as healthy, adaptive, or successful. And we know people that sort of fit into that, right?
Yep.
But you most likely wouldn't describe them as resilient.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So resilience is something you would describe as present when there has been a significant threat to someone's life and functioning, such as war or an unsafe home environment, or perhaps you live in a very unsafe neighborhood.
A sick parent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to set that framework.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because resilience is not what comes to mind with the former, right? The person that didn't go through any adversity. That's not the thing I would think about. So it makes sense.
Good.
Yeah.
So here's some questions to reflect on your resilience, and then we'll go into ways in which you can increase your own resilience. So what role has my upbringing played in shaping my resilience? How have I responded to past challenges in my life? Do I have a support system of friends and family I can rely on during tough times? Have I ever noticed a pattern of adapting and learning from difficult experiences?
Those are not easy questions to answer, but I feel like they're very reflective.
Yeah. I mean, I really, I think for me, the role that my upbringing played in shaping my resilience, I think that's a huge one for me personally, right? Like, I certainly had a very, I don't want to say unstable, but like my life was very unpredictable from year to year, right? And so there were years where my dad wasn't around. Right. And then when he was around, there was a lot of ups and downs.
Yep.
And then he passed away. And so there were a lot of moments in my life where I faced a lot of unknowns where I certainly felt uncomfortable or unsafe, even
Right.
at school, right? And so I think all of those experiences have definitely shaped who I am today. And I really don't think that there's anything I can't get through
Yeah,
because of
I believe that.
all of the things I have been through, right? And so,
Yes. And that's a great example in what we said resilience is, right? You had the ability to bounce back from adversity because, knock on wood, you're thriving right now. And there's a lot of people that would allow all those challenges to really set them back and not be able to move forward from that. So I think that's a great example of you being resilient.
thanks.
I love it.
As are you.
Why, thank you. Well, we're going to go into some ways in which you can increase your resilience. First one being cultivating social connections. So Dr. George Bonanno, he's a leading resilience researcher. He emphasized the importance of social support in building resilience and strengthening your bonds with friends and family.
I love
Does that
this
resonate?
one. Oh, yeah.
Do you have an example?
I mean, not too long ago, actually, I sent a text. I'm like on this group text with friends from high school. They're all married with families and doing quite well. But I thanked them for playing such a pivotal role in my life during a time that I was just mentally not okay. I had a lot of awful thoughts about just life and my role in it and my existence. And so I wouldn't get through it without them. And we'd get together pretty much daily. And, we were all going through our own struggles at home or at school, but we would just get together and laugh. And we always knew that we could rely on one another and support one another for anything, right?
Yeah.
And that was a very pivotal time in my life where I really needed that. My dad had passed away. My mom was a single mom trying to raise 2 teenage daughters. And it was really hard.
This was in high school?
Yeah, it was my freshman year.
Oh, gosh.
So, they played a huge support system for me, right?
That's beautiful.
And I don't take for granted how lucky I was to have them.
Yeah. I
And
love
continue
that.
to have them.
That's amazing. And you guys are still in each other's lives.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right. The second one is developing coping strategies. So research recommends that learning problem-solving skills and cognitive restructuring techniques to handle adversity effectively is a great way to build your resilience. And the goal is to replace negative or distorted thoughts with more balanced and rational ones. Another technique is using a series of probing questions for you to really dig in and examine the evidence for and against your negative thoughts. So for instance, you might ask, what's the evidence that supports my belief that I'm a failure? And what's the evidence against it? One thing this reminds me of is Byron Katie's work. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
She's an author and speaker, and she developed a method called The Work, where she encourages you to ask 4 questions when a negative thought pops up. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And who would you be without that thought? And what I like about this is that there's so many times that we are attached to certain beliefs about ourselves that we're not encouraged to examine them further. And this is a really good way of doing that.
I love that.
Yeah,
I can think of so many examples.
Yeah. Do you want to share one? Just putting you in the hot seat today.
Like I remember I would say things to my college professor like, I'm terrified that I'm going to fail this class, right? And she would say things like, why would you fail the class? Have you failed any other classes? And I would say no.
Right.
And she'd say, then why do you believe that you would fail this one? There's no evidence that you've ever failed a class.
Yep.
So why would you fail this one? And so that really helped me throughout college and as I've gotten older to really ask myself when I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a good example.
It's a great example. Yeah. It's examining your thoughts and beliefs.
Right. And then changing them. So
Yes.
a lot of times I'll just ask myself, like, is this true? Or is this just my anxiety
Yep.
or me being hard on myself or whatever, for whatever reason, I've developed this framework about myself that
Yep.
has no bearing on the reality of who I am and what I'm capable of.
Right. Actually, that brings up an example. I'm just going to share one too.
Good, because I was about to ask you.
Okay, great. I know a lot of times at work, imposter syndrome, that's a real thing, right? And I think because of, the way that we grew up being children of immigrants, really struggling financially, not a lot of college educated people in our family, I have this belief that I'm still battling, that I don't belong in, these prestigious careers or jobs. And there's a lot of times that my behavior reflects that when I'm in a meeting, and I have to catch myself in the thought of like, these people are not judging you. They're not thinking, why is she here? She's not supposed to be here, etc. So that's a big one for me of when I'm actually journaling or reflecting is who would I be if I didn't have that thought, right? How much further could I go if I don't let that limiting thought hold me down? Which I think I've done a pretty good job, but it's definitely an example of one that I know I'm attached to.
Yeah, and then even asking yourself, like, even if they do have those thoughts about you,
Yeah.
do you really care?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And I know, I get what you're saying, and that's a whole nother topic that we'll probably get into at some point. But yeah, I mean, the reality is they might be thinking those things. You're right. But again, is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? Is
Right.
it true that I
Right.
don't belong?
Right. Where's
Was
the
it
evidence?
just luck? Was it luck that I arrived here?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a big one. I love it. Let's move on. So the next way in which you can increase your resilience is practicing mindfulness and self-compassion. There's a ton of research on the impact of mindfulness and self-compassion in increasing your resilience. And I know these are probably two words that you've heard before. I think an example here would be beneficial. Alina?
What was the woman's name? She's done a ton of research on self-compassion.
Kristen Neff. Dr.
Yeah.
Kristen Neff.
Love her.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. Yeah, I think as far as mindfulness goes, that's a really hard one. And I just finished reading, The Creative Process or The Creative something by Rick Rubin. He talks a lot about mindfulness, and it's a really hard practice because you have to be mindful, which is nearly impossible, like every second of the day,
Oh, yeah.
right? Which it's impossible. But I just try to do things that I guess keep me present and help in gratitude. So if I'm having a meal, I always think about how lucky and fortunate I am to have food. The fact that I can go to a restaurant or I can open my fridge and there's food in there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, not everyone has that privilege.
Right.
And so I'm grateful for the meal first. And then I think about, sitting down. I think about the chewing process. Like I'm not plopped down in front of a television or on the phone. Not always.
Right.
But I just really focus on the food and think about where it came from and how it got to my plate. And
Oh, wow.
If I got something from the farmer's market, the farmer who grew that vegetable,
Right.
From a seedling,
Oh,
things like that.
that's really nice. And the taste, I'm sure, is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you do it?
Not with food. I love watching TV when I'm eating, or sometimes, being across the table with my husband and having a conversation. But where I practice mindfulness, I have to get better at this. But one thing Oprah mentioned once was like even showering, right? A lot of times showering, we have these brilliant ideas that come up, and we're always thinking about something when we're showering, or most of us.
Best thinking.
The best, right? But she had given this example about being mindful in the shower, right? Just like thinking about or looking at the water hitting your skin, the way that feels, the way the soap bubbles up on your loofah, and just reminding yourself, I am in the shower in this moment and the water is hitting my skin right now. Even those micro moments of mindfulness add up, right? We can't, like you said, we can't be mindful all day. And even though it sounds like such a minute example, it's impactful when you do it, at least, in small chunks throughout your life, not just throughout a day. And I for one, could be better at practicing that.
I don't think it's minute at all. Like when you travel, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm the most grateful for when I travel is the plumbing in this country, right? The fact that you have hot water.
Yes.
You have decent water pressure. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good one. And then self-compassion.
Yeah, that one's huge. I
Yeah.
know. I feel like that's something that's gotten maybe more and more popular. I've heard so many different examples of what you can do, like maybe place a photo of yourself as a child on your mirror so that when you look in the mirror, you're not so hard on yourself and the way you look, perhaps, or who you are. I think reflecting back on your childhood is really important, because I think you can ask yourself, like, would I be this hard on myself if I was that 3-year-old girl or that 5-year-old girl, right?
That's powerful.
I'd be kind to her. So why am I not kind to my 40-some-year-old self?
Right.
Why am I not kind to my adult self?
Right. Oof. That's a powerful one.
Yeah. Do you practice self-compassion?
I mean, when I need to get back to my meditations every day, but a lot of the ones that I loved are very similar to yours. It's more about the inner child. And I always end up in tears with those meditations. And I love that. I think that's a good thing because it's unlocking something. And there's this one about, 2 chairs in a room.
You shared that one with me.
I did.
Amanda Sellers or something?
Yes, on Insight Timer. Highly recommend.
Oh my God, I cried.
I do it. I keep doing that one.
That's so good.
I love it. So it's about your, who's sitting in that chair? Is it the older version of you or the younger version of you? And I typically lean towards the younger version. And it's a beautiful thing to think about what you would tell that younger person, if you were face to face with them. So it's just, I have goosebumps. I think that's my way of practicing self-compassion. Again, I'd like to be better at that. I think we all could be better at that, and not beating ourselves up.
Yeah. Especially if you're like an empathetic person. I think you're very compassionate to others, right?
Yes.
And understanding others and, maybe they're going through a hard time.
Yes.
But why don't you do that to yourself?
Right.
With yourself.
Such an important question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. The next mechanism is maintaining physical health. So the things we know: exercise, sleep, healthy nutrition.
Yeah.
There's other stuff, I'm sure. Well,
all the things.
Yeah.
Getting out in nature,
sunlight.
Getting some sunlight.
Yeah. It seems so simple.
Breathing.
Yeah.
Mechanisms. It seems so simple, but
But it's funny, like we know we need to do them and not all of us do that. I will say for this one, we keep this one short because I know we all probably know how important these aspects are, is my sleep. I am a soldier with my sleep, and I'm sure you know that. Like I find such a profound difference when I am able to get a good night's sleep, take my magnesium at night, get my 8 hours at least of sleep. I wake up just refreshed, like I just got recharged. And I just think better. I'm kinder to myself. I'm more emotionally regulated. So sleep is a big one for me, on top of the other stuff. But I would say that one is the one I'm really disciplined with.
Yeah, I need to get better at that. It's like you know what you need to do. It's just a question of doing it.
Yeah.
And for me, I try to get to bed at a decent time, but then I wake up numerous times throughout the night, and that's really hard. But again, it's like you know what you're supposed to do. It's just a question of how well do you do it? Because I agree. You know, if I feel good and I'm rested and I'm hydrated and I'm feeling good physically and I'm not in any physical pain, I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm a better version. Yeah. So
I love it. So we found Dr. Ann Maston's research in resilience suggests that setting realistic and achievable goals is an important aspect of building resilience. And so her work highlights the importance of breaking larger objectives into smaller steps. And it can help you feel like you're making progress and maintain your motivation and build a sense of control in your life.
I love her work.
Yeah, I don't know it that well.
Yeah, if you don't know who she is, look her up. It's Maston, Dr. Ann Maston. She's done incredible work with children. She's done a lot of longitudinal studies. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that book.
Atomic Habits?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's like the majority of what he talks about is breaking out your goals into small chunks. And one example is when if somebody wants to start waking up earlier and you're not a morning person, if you normally wake up at 7, you want to start waking up at 5:30 so that you can do a workout and do all the things that, high functioning humans do. That to just do it in small steps is saying, okay, well, tomorrow I'll wake up at 6:50 instead of 7, doing that for a week. And the next one, so on and so forth. You do get that sense that you're making progress. And when we try to do like the New Year's resolutions of these big goals and then we fall off after 30 days, it's just evidence that breaking it out into small steps is beneficial.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any experience doing any chunking of goals.
I have a book and I just put several goals in there, no matter how small. They tend to be smaller. And then I revisit that book every month. And then I'm typically able to like cross off multiple goals. Some sort of transfer over into the following month. But
is this like a journal, like a workbook, or like a book?
No, it's just a blank notebook.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I literally just put like
book?
January goals,
okay,
February goals.
I love it.
And it could be, wake up an hour earlier, or wake up, or go to bed by this time.
Yeah.
But I try to do it within 30-day increments, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like if you have a New Year's resolution and it's to stop drinking or drink less, whatever it may be, the data shows that you're much more likely to incorporate that behavior into your daily sort of routine if you make it smaller and more manageable, right?
Yep.
So instead of saying, I'm not going to drink next year,
right,
or I'm only going to drink on weekends next year, instead of that, say, okay, for the month of January, I'm only going to drink on Saturdays.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
I guess that's how I interpret this, is
Yeah.
making it much more manageable. Right.
Right.
And then once January's done, then you can tweak it or, revisit it and see what you need to change to make it more in line with your goal.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. These big old dreams. It's funny. We have a lot of dreams and aspirations. And if I just say like, I want to do this one day and I want to do this one day. Okay. I don't start. Right. So it's like, do research on this thing, how to launch something. That's it. That for the month of whatever, that's what I'm going to do. Or even for that week. It just feels like you're making progress. And that is what maintains motivation. Mm-hmm. Motivation does not come just naturally, right? It's when you feel like you're making progress in something, you become more motivated. So it's pushing through that, the first step. It's exciting.
I like it.
And lastly, learning from adversity.
Yeah. I think this is a really important one, and perhaps one that is underestimated, right? Mm-hmm. Because I feel like we all learn from our experiences and the different challenges that we're dealt with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to think about the things that you've had to get through.
Yep.
And really reflect on where you are today as a result of that adversity, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It does make sense.
Do you have an example?
I can think of an example, and I'm a little hesitant to share it, but I think it's a good example for this.
Do tell.
Okay. So I was born with a birth defect in my breasts and had to go through 5 surgeries over the course of 10 or so years. And it was a very challenging experience because I found that over time, I had this myopic focus on my physical appearance. And so how else can I make everything else perfect? Whether it's face, like working out, dieting, not eating a lot. And it really helped me to learn that what made me a beautiful person was not the physical aspect. And over the years, I learned that these setbacks and challenges that I had experienced were valuable learning opportunities, which contributed to my overall resilience. And it was really hard getting through that, as you know. But yeah, did that reflection. And I think that's where we say learning from adversity. It was a huge learning experience for me.
Thanks for sharing. I love that. That's a great one.
Thank you.
Yeah, gosh, that was a tough one for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
You've come a long way.
Thank you. I was going to say, I'm not like fully healed, but yeah. It's not linear. So
yeah,
good times. Well,
this has been fun.
This has been great.
I mean, I don't know if fun is the right word, but
I had fun.
Okay.
How dare you?
Okay.
How dare you?
Yeah, I think, God, I could talk about resilience forever.
That's a good one.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like it's just in so much of who we are and what we do. And there's so many different words that you can think about that can fit into resilience, right? You can think about neuroplasticity. You can think about adversity, bouncing back, inner strength,
courage.
Right? Yeah. And I think the good news, the great news, because I think for a while there was a lot of questions around, are you born with resilience? And if it is genetic, then, well, you're screwed.
Good luck to you.
You're SOL. But the good news is that there is this like 50%, nature, 50% nurture, right?
Huge.
And so I think it's fair to say that most people are going to face challenges in their lives,
yep.
right?
Oh, yeah.
But the data shows that there are these things that you can do to overcome them, right?
Yeah.
And not only come out on the other side, but come out ablazing.
Thriving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good place for us to close our first episode by saying that we encourage you to consider your own resilience and reflect on your responses to adversity, and hope some of the mechanisms that we've just touched on this episode help you build your own inner strength in some way.
We hope so. All right. So we will end our episodes with something that's bringing us joy lately. So Lena, do you want to go first in sharing something that's bringing you joy?
Gladly. I recently bought a new set of sheets.
Ooh.
And girl, they are so silky smooth. They just feel so divine. They don't wrinkle a whole lot when I take them out of the dryer. And honestly, like, I am just so excited to get into bed because of these sheets.
I'm going to have to ask you what they are.
Oh, yeah. They're just divine. I love them and they give me so much joy. So I'm going to say my sheets, my bed sheets.
I love that.
How about you, Ange? What's bringing you joy lately?
Well, I would say spending quality time with family. The other week we had some family in town, my uncle, my aunt, and we all spent a really nice time together. We took a little short trip out to a small town in Wisconsin, and Alina was there. And I don't know, it's easy to forget about the importance of relatives. Like, if you don't live in the same state, you don't really see each other that often, but it's really beautiful when you come together and just spend quality time together. I'm still reeling from that and I'm beaming from it. It was a good time.
It was a good time. That brought me a lot of joy too.
Yeah. Great. Don't take it from me.
I know. I was just going to say that gave me more joy than the sheets, but
hey, sheets are fair. Sheets are important. Well, that's all we've got for you today. We'll see you next time on Tell Me More and Then Some. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review to help us reach more listeners.
To learn more, make sure to follow us on all the socials at More and Then Some Pod.
Join us for new episodes every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Until next time, stay curious, learn more, and talk about it.